I will never forget the first time I heard branches snapping under a step that couldn't belong to any animal. That night, the campfire was dying in front of my cabin, and the wind carried the scent of wet pine. I held a bowl of hot stew between my hands, trying to keep the mountain silence from eating away at my sanity. That's when the ground seemed to sigh beneath my feet. The sound came from deep within the woods, as if something enormous was approaching with a tired stride. I froze, but my mind ran wild. I imagined a massive bear, some forest spirit, or worse, a landslide. But what emerged from between the trees was nothing my imagination could have conjured. A woman, a gigantic woman, glowing beneath the moonlight, at least 30 feet tall. Her skin had the warm color of dawn, and her enormous golden eyes shone with a mix of exhaustion and hunger. She wore a torn tunic woven from some kind of plant fiber that moved like water around her body. She was beautiful in a way that made me forget, for a few seconds, how impossible the scene was. She leaned toward me with a gentleness that contrasted with her size. Before we begin, I ask that you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where in the world you're listening from. This helps us bring you more stories like this. Let's go. Her long, dark hair, wet with dew, fell like a waterfall around her face. She parted her lips and released a whisper that wrapped around me like warm wind. "Is that food I smell?" she asked, her voice deep and trembling. I could barely nod. "Yes," I said, almost breathless. "I can share." She closed her eyes in relief, as if that small gesture tiny for me meant salvation for her. She knelt carefully, sinking her knees into the soft earth, and extended a huge but gentle hand. I placed the bowl in her palm. It looked like a toy resting on an altar. The giantess brought the bowl to her face and breathed in the steam with an expression of gratitude so sincere it left me speechless. She took tiny sips, mere drops to herba, enough to make her eyes glisten. "Thank you," she murmured. "We've gone days without food. I came ahead to look for something, anything. I didn't know I'd find this with you," I asked, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she offered me a soft smile that lit up the night far more than the dying fire. Then she slowly leaned back against a nearby tree, exhausted. Her massive legs stretched across the clearing, and her hands rested on her abdomen, still holding the empty bowl. Within seconds, she had fallen asleep. I couldn't sleep. Had I done the right thing? Who was she? Where did a woman that size come from? The questions circled in my mind while the moon made its silent journey across the sky. The first ray of dawn brought a sound that nearly stopped my heart. It wasn't a footstep, it was many. Heavy, deep, rumbling like distant war drums. The ground began to shake. Birds burst from the treetops like a frantic cloud. I jumped to my feet, and before I could process what was happening, colossal shadows rose over my cabin. Not one, not two, but a dozen giant figures. All different in shape, all carrying a beauty that felt ripped from forgotten legends. Some wore armor made of wood and stone, others wide tunics decorated with symbols I didn't understand. Their gazes weren't hostile, but they were intense. They studied my home, my face, my empty hands. And then every one of their eyes settled on her, the sleeping giantess beside the trees. One of the tallest figures stepped forward. His voice boomed like the echo of a storm. "You have fed one of ours. That changes everything." My throat tightened. I didn't know if that was a threat, a pact, or the beginning of something far larger than I could comprehend. Finally, another giant with bright green eyes crouched until he was leveled with my cabin. His expression was deep but curious. "Human," he said softly. "What you've done tonight carries consequences, and our tribe has come to speak with you." My hands trembled. My world so small, the night before had suddenly become a vast, mysterious territory filled with giants watching me, as if I were the key piece of some unexpected destiny. And there, surrounded by enormous beings at dawn, I knew my life would never be the same again. When the giantess awoke, she did so with a jolt that made the branches above us tremble. Her golden eyes snapped open, and upon seeing her tribe surrounding us, she pushed herself up slowly, the exhaustion still etched on her face. I took an instinctive step back, but she extended her hand in a calming gesture, as if her presence alone could shield me from the unknown. "He helped me," she said in a deep voice, looking at the other giants. "If it weren't for him, I might not have seen the sunrise." The colossal figures exchanged glances heavy with meaning. It felt as though I'd crossed a boundary without realizing it. Some giants looked surprised, others deeply intrigued. One enormous woman around 30 feet tall, with long black braids that hung over her shoulders like shining ropes, approached with a ceremonial stride. "Noelia," she said, bowing slightly toward the giantess I had fed. "Your recklessness put us at risk. But perhaps this human isn't like the others." I swallowed hard. Noah. I finally had a name for the woman who, the night before, had seemed like something pulled from a trembling dream. She looked at me, and for an instant it felt as though my thoughts were exposed under an invisible light. "What's your name?" Noelia asked. "Mateo," I replied. My voice came out weaker than I'd intended. Another giant, a broad-shouldered man with emerald green eyes, spoke from the back. "What should we do with him? He knows we exist. He's seen our trail." Noelia frowned, concern clouding her features. It wasn't his fault. It was only a matter of time before someone found us. The braided giantess studied me carefully. Humans fear what they don't understand. Many would hunt us if they knew we were still alive. I wouldn't, I blurted out, surprising even myself. "I don't want to hurt you. I didn't know you." I trailed off. What does one say after discovering that towering women still live hidden among the forests? Noelia leaned closer, placing a giant hand on the ground. Her face was so close I could see tiny reflections of leaves in her golden eyes. Her voice softened until it was almost a whisper. "Mateo, our tribe has been hiding from humans for generations. We don't trust Isili." She inhaled deeply, as though what she said next carried enormous weight. "But you stepped out of your cabin in the middle of the night, fear in your eyes, yet you still offered food. We don't forget things like that." The braided woman crossed her arms. "Noelia, you're impulsive. We can't base decisions on emotion." "This isn't just emotion," Noelia replied firmly. "It's instinct. He isn't like the others." The giants began to murmur among themselves, their deep voices blending with the distant birdsong. I didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. Inside me churned a mix of fascination and fear. A primal, ancient fear, but also an inexplicable trust in Noelia, as if her presence quieted something deep within me. Finally, the braided giantess raised her hand for silence. "Very well," she said with ceremonial gravity. "Mateo, the tribe needs to know whether you'll keep our secret, whether you're willing to remain silent about what you've seen tonight." "I will," I answered immediately. "I won't say anything. I swear it." She arched a brow as though weighing the truth in my words. Then she nodded. "Then there's another matter. If you're going to keep our secret, you must understand what's at stake." Noelia turned toward her. "Are you sure?" Telling him that it's necessary, the other giantess replied. She lifted her hand, pointing toward the deeper forest. "We're not here just passing through, we're hiding because someone human is hunting us. And if they find us, not only will we be in danger, anyone who has helped us will be seen as a threat as well." A chill ran down my spine. Noelia looked at me then, with a mix of tenderness and gravity that stole the breath from my lungs. "Mateo, when you fed me last night, you unknowingly became part of our story. And now, whether we want it or not, the entire tribe must decide your fate." I felt the weight of dawn pressing down on me, as if the rising sun wasn't just lighting the forest, but illuminating the abyss opening beneath my feet. The giant women watched me, enormous, cautious, mesmerizing, as if I were a thin thread that could hold or break the destiny of them all. And in that tense silence, the tribe began to deliberate about me, about who I was, about whether I could be trusted, about whether I should be welcomed among them. or separated forever from everything I had seen. My heart pounded as if it were trying to escape my chest. The tribe's deliberation lasted what felt like an eternity. The deep murmurs of those giants blended with the creaking of the trees, as if nature itself were holding its breath while they decided my fate. Noelia stayed close to me, seated in a protective posture, her massive shadow shielding me from the sun as it slowly rose between the mountains. The braided woman finally raised her voice. "We will take him to the clearing of voices. There we will hear what he has to say and decide." The others nodded, some with doubt, others with curiosity. My stomach twisted. Noelia looked down at me. "Don't be afraid. They won't hurt you while I'm here." It was strange. A part of me knew I should be terrified. I was surrounded by beings 10 times my size, creatures who could crush me with a single step. But when I looked at Noelia, when I heard her deep, steady voice, the fear receded like a tide refusing to advance. "You must climb on," she said, extending her giant hand toward me. The sight was overwhelming, her palm, wide as a small boat, waiting for me to trust her. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and climbed on. Her skin was warm, firm, surprisingly soft, like something human, but magnified. When her fingers closed gently around me, I didn't feel trapped. I felt sheltered. The giants began walking through the trees, moving aside branches and trunks with ease. Each step made the ground vibrate. From the height of Noelia's hand, I saw the forest as never before. Treetops barely reached her knees, and streams looked like silver threads winding between massive roots. "Do you always live hidden here?" I asked, raising my voice to compete with their colossal footsteps. "Since before your kind built cities," Noelia replied, "our existence depends on no one finding us." "But why is someone hunting you now?" Her expression darkened. It was strange seeing such a human, profound emotion on a magnificent, enormous face. "Because years ago, we made a mistake. One that changed everything." Before I could ask more, the landscape suddenly opened. A circular clearing, as large as a stadium, stretched out before us. Sunlight filtered down in golden columns, illuminating the moss and ancient stones. At its center stood a ring of massive rocks, covered in glowing runes. I couldn't read them, but I could feel them, important, ancient, pulsing with energy. The giants settled around the circle and sat with solemnity. Noelia gently placed me on a flat stone in front of her. The braided woman rose, her towering figure dominating the gathering. "The clearing of voices will hear us," she said. "And she pointed at me, "will speak." I felt 100 colossal eyes lock onto me at once. She continued, "Matteo, human. Tell us why you helped Noelia. Tell us what you saw in her that night." I inhaled. My thoughts were tangled, but the words flowed out on their own. She was hungry. She was scared. And even though she was enormous, I saw something deeply human in her eyes. I didn't think about danger. I just wanted to help. I paused. I guess it was instinct. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Some giants looked surprised, others doubtful. Instinct repeated, an elderly giant with a trembling voice. A motive rarely heard among humans. Noelia held my gaze. "I felt the same," she said honestly. "I felt he wasn't a threat, that there was kindness." The braided woman stepped into the center and struck her staff against the ground, sending a soft tremor through the clearing. "What this human has done is rare, but we cannot ignore the danger we face. Armed men are moving toward our mountains, and if he speaks even by accident, he will expose us." "I won't," I said firmly. "I know how to stay silent." "Words," rumbled a deep voice. "Humans speak many." Then Noelia spoke with unexpected force. "Enough." Silence fell like a thunderclap. "If anyone must answer for him, it's me," she declared. "I found him, he saved me. And if he betrays us, then I will face the consequences myself." A wave of shock passed through the tribe. I froze, unable to believe what I had just heard. Noelia was wagering her fate. For me, the braided woman stared at her. Do you mean that, Noelia? Yes, Noelia answered firmly. He matters. I feel it. The runes on the stones glowed faintly, as if the entire clearing responded to her words. And in that moment, I realized I was caught between two worlds. The one I came from, and the one I never imagined existed. And both were beginning to claim me. The silence that followed Noelia's words was so deep I could hear the wind descending from the mountains, carrying dry leaves that spun slowly through the air. The entire tribe seemed to be trying to decipher something invisible, as if their world had been pushed off its ancient balance by the simple declaration of a giantess who only hours earlier could barely stand from hunger. The braided woman whose very presence commanded the clearing, even among giants, took a long breath and closed her eyes for a moment, as though consulting some hidden truth within herself. When she opened them, her gaze was sharper, but also more curious. Noelia, if you are going to answer for him, then Mateo must know what is truly at stake. The runes etched into the monoliths surrounding the clearing glowed faintly, as if they anticipated the revelation. The giants settled themselves, forming a perfect circle. My pulse quickened. The air had changed. It carried the metallic taste of a secret about to break through the surface of the world. The braided giantess stepped forward until she stood only a few paces from me, though, for her scale. Those few paces were enormous and rested both hands on her staff. Then she spoke with solemnity. Generations ago, our kind lived in peace with humans, not as equals, but as guardians. We watched over the forests, the mountains, the rivers, and in return, humans respected us, giving us space to exist. Her voice deepened. But one day, a group of humans wanted more. They wanted power, strength, ownership of what we were protecting. They deceived one of our own to gain access to something that should never have fallen into small hands. What was it? I asked, before I could stop myself. She looked at me with a mix of warning and sorrow. We called it the Dupna Stone, an ancient fragment that held the power to alter life itself. No one was meant to possess it, neither giants nor humans. A chill ran through my body. When the stone fell into the wrong hands, humans began hunting us. They wanted us extinguished. They feared what we represented. We retreated into these forests, sealed our paths, hid our tracks. We swore never to reveal our existence again. Noelia stepped forward, her voice resonating like a heartbeat. But the group that attacked us didn't disappear entirely. Their bloodline survived, and now they search for the stone again. They have found signs. They are following our trail. The braided giantess nodded. They are close, Mateo, closer than you realize. That is why your presence is a risk. If you speak even by accident, you could lead them straight to us. I felt myself turning to ice. Noelia, seated just behind me, leaned in, her face shadowing mine completely. But I do not believe he is a danger, she said gently. Last night, I saw fear in his eyes. But it did not freeze him. It turned into compassion. The braided woman stood tall, raising one hand for silence. That is why, she continued, I will propose something we have not done in centuries. The giants murmured anxiously. Mateo will have to prove he is not a threat, that his heart aligns with ours, as his instinct seems to suggest. He must accompany us on our journey to the Silent Valley. There, we guard the last remnant of the place where the Dawnstone was once kept. My legs trembled. Me, go with you. Yes, she said. You will witness our lives, see what we protect. And we will see whether your soul is worthy of trust. And if it isn't, I whispered. No one answered immediately. The silence alone was enough. But Noelia leaned toward me, her enormous face filled with a tenderness and determination that made it hard to breathe. I will not harm you, she said. I won't allow anyone to harm you, but you must understand. Once you walk with us, your human life will change forever. The weight of her words pressed on me. The forest itself seemed to listen, waiting for my decision. The giant tribe, majestic and enigmatic, watched in tense silence, and Noelia. She looked at me with something in her eyes that wasn't just gratitude. It was deeper, something that completely disarmed me. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of destiny, or maybe because the thought of leaving her tore something inside me apart. I spoke the words that would seal the course of my life. I'll go with you. A wave of surprised murmurs rippled through the giants. Noelia lowered her gaze, and her smile was so warm it made me forget the cold of the forest. Then, Mateo, the braided woman, said, "Prepare yourself. Because once we reach the silent valley, there will be no turning back." And the clearing, quiet as a temple, seemed to lean toward me, as if the world itself had accepted my choice. The journey to the silent valley began at dawn, when the light still filtered timidly through the trees. Noelia lifted me gently and set me on her shoulder, from where I could see the forest spread out like a green ocean beneath us. The other giants moved forward in silence, their steps echoing like ancient drums that seemed to awaken sleeping memories in the earth. As we distanced ourselves from the clearing of voices, the air grew colder, denser. The trees became taller and more twisted, as if guarding secrets they refused to share. There was an invisible weight settling over everything. Noelia noticed it. I could feel her breathing deepen, as though preparing herself for what lay ahead. "Are you okay?" I asked, touching her neck lightly to get her attention. Her golden eyes glimmered sideways. "Yes, but the valley doesn't make things easy. No one enters it without feeling its history." The tribe walked with solemnity. The braided woman led the way. The younger giants scanned the surroundings with caution, as though afraid something or someone might be following us. When we finally passed the last line of trees, the landscape opened before us with almost unreal majesty. The silent valley was a natural amphitheater carved by centuries of wind, an immense bowl surrounded by white rocks that emitted a faint glow. There was no sound, no birds, no wind, no insects. Just absolute silence, so pure it felt tangible. The braided woman raised her hand. "We have arrived." The giants knelt around the center of the valley, where a massive smooth stone rose from the ground. It was covered in glowing runes, similar to those in the previous clearing. But these shone with a bluish hue, like ice. Noelia lowered me gently onto the cold surface of the rock. "This is the last remnant of the Dawn Chamber," the braided woman said. "Here, the stone was kept. Before it was stolen, I leaned in to observe the runes. When I brought my hand close, a faint tingling spread through my fingers, as if the markings were reacting to my presence. I looked up, startled. "That is not normal," murmured an elderly giant. "The runes do not awaken for humans." The tension thickened instantly. Noelia moved closer, kneeling beside me. Her massive, beautiful face held a mixture of awe and fear. "Mateo, what exactly do you feel?" "I'm not sure," I said. "It's like a soft vibration, as if the stone were trying to say something." The giants exchanged uneasy glances. It was clear this was not part of the plan. The braided woman struck the ground with her staff. "This cannot be coincidence. The bloodline that stole the stone always sought humans sensitive to its energy. If he reacts, they may be tracking him." A shiver ran through me. Noelia stood instantly. Her voice boomed with defiance. "No, he knew nothing. This cannot be his fault." "But they could use him," the braided woman countered. "If the enemy can detect the stone through him, they could find the valley. And if that happens, our refuge will fall." My breathing quickened. The thought of being a danger to them without meaning to hit me like a freezing wave. "I won't expose you," I said, voice trembling. "I don't want to hurt any of you." Noelia looked at me with a new intensity, part resolve, part something deeper, something warm. "Mateo, you are not a danger. You are something we didn't expect." Then the ground shook. At first, I thought it was one of the giants moving, but no. This sound was different, tougher, harsher, as if something enormous were breaking through the earth from below. The giants rose to their feet, tense alert. The braided woman whispered, "They found us." A crack tore open along the valley's slope. From it emerged human figures, but not like me. They wore dark armor, carried instruments that looked like a mix of technology and ancient ritual, and in their hands, a vibrant blue light. They're using fragments of the stone, Noelia said in horror. They have it. Or at least part of it. The humans advanced. The tribe formed a colossal wall to protect me, but the crack kept widening as though the valley itself were rebelling. Noelia, get him out. The braided woman ordered. No, Noelia replied, with a firmness that made the air vibrate. If he has a connection to the stone, then he's part of this fight. I won't abandon him. She lifted me with gentleness, but absolute determination, placing me back on her shoulder. From there, the valley looked terrifying. Giants facing humans, history colliding with history. Mateo, listen, Noelia said, as the wind whipped around us. Our world changed when you gave me food. Maybe you did it without thinking. But it was the beginning of something none of us understands yet. The cracks multiplied. The blue light of the enemy grew. The giants braced to defend their home, and I, just an ordinary man, found myself standing in the middle of an ancient war. Noelia wrapped my hands between her giant fingers, her voice soft but unshakable. No matter what happens now, you are part of us, and whatever comes next, you won't face it alone. The entire valley roared with a final, thunderous tremor, and I knew that the battle end my new life had just begun. If you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It helps us bring more enchanting stories like this to brighten your day. And tell us in the comments which city in the world you're listening from. See you next time.